Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Fundamental Podcast. Today's episode is a little bit of a different one because we're currently in the car traveling between Budapest and Prague. And I thought it'd be fun to record an episode, and I've brought on my lovely fiancée, Julia, to be a bit of a sparring partner to help guide the conversation and make it as interesting and as useful to you, because it's sometimes, from my own perspective, a little challenging to think of all of the different challenges that people struggle with, and Julia's a great person to ask the right kind of questions, to offer a different perspective and to challenge me on certain points of view or perspectives that I might offer. But today's episode's really focused on giving you the tools and the understanding of how your mind works in order to direct yourself and your life towards things that you really want to achieve and towards things you want to take place and have happen, instead of focusing on all of the things that you want to avoid, and how to become optimally motivated. So if that sounds like something that would benefit you, especially as we move towards the end of the year and thinking about what's to come next year, then stay tuned and let's jump into it. I wanted to talk about refocusing the mind and the perception, because I was talking to a friend, Mia, who we recorded an episode together as well. She's a hypnotist, and she was talking about how she was helping hypnotize her friends out of smoking. And one of the things that she was talking about was how easy it is to distract the mind. And if you know how to distract the mind and point it at things that you do want to focus on, that's ultimately the solution, as opposed to getting in your head focusing on the problem that you're trying to fix, right? So what often happens when somebody is problem aware is they're hyper aware of them making a mistake or doing an activity or a habit that they want to break. So let's take smoking. Somebody who wants to stop smoking might say, I really want to stop smoking. I really want to stop smoking. And they hyperfixate on stopping the smoking. But the problem is, when you are fixated on stopping whatever it is that you're doing, you're still focused on the problem. And because of the way that our minds work, is we can't not think about something. We have to think about something else. And so if you're thinking about not smoking, you're actually thinking about smoking.
That's kind of like the cute little video of the dad who sees his little kid walk up to the puddle with a sandwich, saying, oh yeah, it's a puddle. Don't drop your sandwich in the puddle. And the kid walks up to the puddle and just goes and like chucks it in there.
Right. And
because they don't understand don't.
They don't understand don't. And here's the thing. The subconscious mind doesn't understand don't. Now, kids don't understand don't in a way that, because essentially their subconscious mind, their mind is so open to suggestion, because that's how you learn, right? The fastest way to learn is to go straight to the subconscious. Now, for kids, their subconscious is essentially wide open. If you think of the conscious mind as the guardian at the gate that dictates what can go in and what can't go in, well, when you're a child, you don't really have that guardian at the gate. You don't have the bouncer that stops and picks and chooses what goes in. The door's just wide open. And so kids, when you say don't do something, well, especially when they're very young, they're not hearing the don't, they're just hearing the do something, right? And so, but it's the case for us as well. If we are wanting to stop doing something, you can't be focusing on the activity that you don't want to do. You have to be focusing on an activity that you do want to do in its place. And I think that's something that trips up a lot of people when it comes to changing behavior, changing habits, is that they are focused on the thing that they don't want to do the whole time, instead of getting very, very clear on the behavior that they want to replace it with. So Mia was talking to me, and if you're listening and you want to check out the episode, I highly recommend it. It's episode 30 on the podcast. Go and check that out. All on the subconscious mind and how to hypnotize yourself and others to change their behavior. But what she was talking about is that when she was having a conversation with her friends, and the friends would be asking her, hey, I want to stop smoking. Can you help me to stop smoking? Or she wouldn't be focused on the stopping smoking, what she would do is direct their attention to a behavior that they would rather be doing and a way that they would rather be feeling in order to, and when you do that, if you have the urge to smoke and somebody takes your attention, something catches your attention, or you get pulled in a different direction, you're no longer thinking about the thing that you want to avoid. We're in the car at the moment driving. It's the same if you were to, for example, be driving towards a tree. If you would sit talking to yourself the whole time saying, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, you would hit the tree.
That seems like a dangerous thing to say while I'm driving right now.
Don't hit the tree. But it is the case that the mind works in a directed fashion, and we can direct it to lots of different things, but you can't direct it away from something without directing it towards something else.
Yeah, that's like somebody telling somebody else, oh, like, don't be stressed. Yeah. Well,
exactly.
Cheers, but how is that going to help me?
Exactly. So, for example, in that case, if you're trying to be less stressed, firstly, the first thing you can start to think about in your head is, I want to be more relaxed, or I'm feeling relaxed. And you start to think about the activity that you do want, which is the opposite of stressed. Relaxed, calm, at peace, whatever it might be.
Yeah, another example that comes to mind is when at least I know that when I'm trying to like snack less, like when I'm at home and I'm trying to eat less snacks, like don't go to the cupboard and pick something out to just eat randomly. And it's so hard when I'm not busy, right? Like as soon as I'm doing something else, I don't think about snacking. I don't think about I don't have that problem. But if it's sort of like empty space and I don't know what to do, and then I'm just like, nope, can't snack. Much harder.
Yeah, exactly that. All you're thinking about is the activity that you want to activity that you want to avoid, which just means you're thinking about the activity. Whether you have a don't do this in front of it or can't do this in front of it, doesn't matter. All you're focused on is the thing, and where your focus goes, energy flows. That's the saying, and it's really very, very, very true. Whatever you focus on expands. Whatever you focus on is where you direct your attention, it's where you direct your energy, and it's where you ultimately go to, right? If your energy and your focus and your perception and attention goes towards something, naturally your physical body, everything else will go in that direction as well. And so, yeah, if you're trying to avoid snacking, the trick is to distract you with something else. And the reason I want to talk about it today is because, we're out here traveling, and in general, this year has been a real adventure when it comes to starting a new business, becoming digital nomads. And how I kind of wanted to link those two subjects is the fact that if somebody is in a situation like you might be out there, listening or watching this podcast, and you might be thinking, well, I don't want to be in the situation that I'm in right now, or I don't want to be behaving in the way that I am right now, or I don't want the current job that I've got right now. And what I'd encourage you to do is to start to get firstly get a rough idea of what you do want. And once you have a rough idea, you can start to edit it, and you can start to think and contemplate on what would the dream job look like for you? What would the dream behavior look like for you? What would the quality of your life look like if you could have it in whatever way you want? And the more you think about what you do want as opposed to what you don't want, the more energy you'll put towards creating that outcome. And the more your perception will line up with that goal, and all of a sudden start to reveal opportunities and naturally pull you in that direction.
Yeah, okay, I have to stop you here, because you used to say that to me all the time. You used to be like, oh yeah, but what do you want? What do you want? And I'm also naturally the kind of person, I find it very easy to tell you what I don't want, but it's really hard for me to pick a thing that is what I do want, right? Or like a goal, or like, how would I know? Because most of the time what I don't want comes from experience. So I can vary, like with a high level of certainty, I can say, this is what I don't want because I've tried it and it's not for me. Now, picking something that I do want without trying it is very difficult, right? So is there any way that can be achieved? Because I think just telling people, oh, focus on what you do want. What if I don't know what I want?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. I think that one of the things that I learned years and years ago, I can't remember who said it, but it was that if you don't know what you want, pick anything and try it out. Because you want to get into a habit of moving towards things as opposed to moving away from things. If you move towards something that you've picked and it's not what you want, you can correct your orientation, your direction. You can figure out what part of whatever you originally picked don't you quite like, and then what's a better goal, what's something that contains more of what you did like about that experience. And you can start to direct it's not about being on target immediately. It's about starting to think in heading towards things that are of your choosing, right? Even if they're not the thing that works out to be exactly what you want, there's something that you have chosen and have decided to move towards, as opposed to always avoiding whatever, comes about, right? Like if you're constantly focused on the things that you don't want, you'll constantly be bumping up against stuff that you don't want, and you'll find it so much harder to recognize things that you do want. One sort of more tactical way of doing it is like, if you have a few things in your life that you already are aware of that you don't like or you don't want, pick the opposite of that, or think about something that is in some way, shape, or form a counter to that thing that you don't want. So what's something that in your life you've realized you really don't want?
In the past. Well, before I quit my job, I think I had this really strong feeling of I didn't want to be so intertwined with my work, in the sense that it kind of dictated my entire life, that I was constantly thinking about it, that I was constantly stressed out, that I constantly felt like I was responsible and I needed to, I couldn't get away from it, right, in a way. And I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want work to be surrounding me at all times.
Perfect example. Right, so you take that and you say, well, I don't want to be completely entwined in my work. I don't want to be wrapped up and whatever words you use to describe it. And you go, well, what would the opposite of that be? And you can take the extreme, if you like. What is the complete opposite? And that might be, well, I want to be completely free to do whatever it is that I want, whenever it is that I want to do it. And that might be closer to creating a result that you like. Now, that might not be the solution for you. You might decide after going in that direction that, actually I want a little bit of structure. I want I want some responsibilities, or whatever it might be. There might be aspects within what you didn't want that you actually still enjoy. And you can start to then bring those aspects back in. But the goal is to start focusing on the direction that you do want to head at. And it's good to have both, right? Like, it is good to know what you want to avoid, know what you don't want, because that's a motivating factor as well. We are motivated to avoid loss. We're motivated to avoid pain. And if you can incorporate avoiding the things that you really don't want within a clearly directed goal, then you're going to be optimally motivated. And that's what so much of this is all about. It's about setting yourself up so that you're optimally motivated to avoid something you really don't want and gain something that you really do want. And when you can set yourself up in that way, then you're being pulled towards what you want and pushed away from what you don't want, and then you're going to go in the direction that you want. and ultimately that's going to lead to a more enjoyable experience. The other thing I would say with regards to finding or choosing a goal or something that you do want and starting to work towards it. Now, this is something I've spoken about before in some of my other episodes and other content, which is the way that our dopamine systems are set up. Is dopamine is the chemical of pursuit. It's something that, people think, well, dopamine is something that I get a hit of dopamine when, I don't know, I'd buy a car, for example. That's one way we receive dopamine, but actually the primary way is when our subconscious mind or our body can tell when we're moving towards something that we value. And dopamine is that chemical that makes us feel good, like feel on purpose, like we have meaning to our lives. And I think, there's such a meaning crisis in the world that if people started to understand how powerful it is to set goals clearly defined goals or clearly defined direction, they would start to experience more dopamine as they moved forward toward that goal. They would start to feel less lost, feel more purpose with what they're doing and more meaning. And that would help to encourage them to continue in that direction.
Did you know that there's actually a saying in German that kind of encapsulates that in a way?
I didn't. What's the saying?
Well, the saying is, Vorfreude ist die schönste Freude.
Vorfreude ist die schönste Freude.
Yeah, so it's, technically it means pre-happiness is the best happiness, but pre-happiness in the sense like looking forward to something is the best kind of happiness, right? Yep. So it's that kind of excitement, it's the dopamine, it's the giddy feeling that you get looking forward to something, working towards something, and like knowing that you will achieve whatever goal it might be.
Yeah.
Instead of the actual moment when you achieve it.
I didn't actually know that there was a saying in German, but yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and now it kind of makes sense because it's a very, it's just a normal saying, but...
And, if you're listening, you've probably experienced this when it comes to, planning a vacation, for example. You probably have experienced this where you've enjoyed the planning process and the thinking about the vacation and, imagining being on the beach and all of these things in the lead up to the vacation just as much, if not more, than the vacation itself. And, there are some things we could get into there, but I'll say that for another episode. But it's exactly that. It's this, it's starting to understand how we're set up. Like, human beings are set up as goal-oriented creatures, pursuit-oriented creatures. And if you're wanting to make a change, whatever that change is in your life, if you want to feel like you have a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning, that only works in relation to a goal or a set of goals, right? We all have multiple goals, and there are immediate, intermediate, and there are long-term goals. And
that's also why we kind of feel empty sometimes when we reach something, right? I'm just thinking of the promotion, and when you're working towards the promotion and it's getting kind of close, and you get this feeling of being really proud and, your work being recognized, and you're getting so close, and you're having these maybe conversations with your supervisor or whatever it might be. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a promotion. And then you get the position and you get the raise or whatever it might be. And then it's like, now what?
Now what? Yeah, exactly. And then probably the next time you start to feel good again is when you've got the next target, right?
Yeah, you need that kind of perspective, right? That's a lot of the time also why people switch jobs or switch companies, because at some point they kind of hit the ceiling in whatever position they're in, and there's not a natural next goal to reach or natural next position to reach. So to have something to pursue again and to find something new, you kind of have to.
And, when it comes to company structure and if you're running a company and you have employees, that's a really good thing to understand as well. And it doesn't have to be set up as just a promotion. People have different motivations. So some people will be really motivated by status, and therefore, the thing that really drives them is that next promotion, is more responsibility over, more people, more pay, those sorts of things. But other people will have other motivational systems, but everybody has a motivational system, and a motivational system is simply an orientation, a goal, and goals doesn't mean like a physical get something. A goal can be personal development, right? And this is actually what I encourage people to do, is like when you're setting goals, instead of setting fixed targets that you can achieve and then feel kind of lost once you've achieved it, is to set targets that you can move towards, that you feel like you're actually making progress towards a goal, but that ultimately can never be fully met, right? Like for example, it might be something like, well, I want to become more confident and competent in communicating and interacting with people. Well, that's something you can get better today. You can get better at next week. You can get better in 10 years' time. It's a lifelong pursuit. And as long as you build in the structures and the systems so that you can calculate and recognize, at least to some level, it doesn't have to be a conscious level, that you are moving in that direction, then you're going to be motivated, right? You're going to be motivated to keep doing that. And you can set yourself up in lots of different ways in this way to become, develop yourself in a whole range of areas. That means that you're constantly motivated to put yourself into situations where, you have to, if it's communicating, for example, it might be, or you take on the challenge of giving public talks, or you get a promotion at work, for example, where you then need to address a team. And so those other achievements can be baked into it, but you don't feel lost. It's not something that you just achieve and then you've got to pick a new target. It's a target that continues to be aimed at and then moves off into the horizon as you move closer towards it. And I wanted to go back to your point with regards to not knowing what you want, because I do think that that's something that many people struggle with. It's like, well, I don't know what I want. Well, again, when we were talking about this at the beginning, you have to start looking at the right target. So instead of saying to yourself, well, I don't know what I want, I don't know what I want, I don't know what I want, you could frame that, you could rephrase that and ask yourself, well, what do I want? What would make me happy? What would be something that I would enjoy? Because when you start to ask yourself these questions and you do it on a repeated basis, you will get an answer. And it might not be the perfect answer, but it might not be something where you're like, yes, that's the one thing. And you do it and you're like, yes, this is it. But it will be closer than not knowing anything, it's not knowing what you want. If something comes up, you say, what do I want? What would make me happy? And an idea pops up, that's where you could go, okay, well, I'll try that out. Maybe I'll just have a go at that and see it. You might find that it works out, or you might find it's not quite right, but it will orient you and give you a better idea and bring you closer to what you want.
So kind of like having your radar open to possibilities in a way.
Yeah. Starting to look for, I like that, radar. Essentially scanning outwards into like what's out there that I could want. And then you'll get a ping on the radar that says, here's something. And maybe it doesn't turn out to be quite the right thing, but at least you're now looking in the right direction instead of looking behind you, focusing on all of the stuff behind you that doesn't help you, because you can only move forward in life. You can only go one direction, and that's forward. And if you're focusing constantly on the past and everything behind you, or everything that you don't want in the future, then you're just making it so much harder for yourself. You're essentially leaving it up to luck that you randomly bump into the thing that you want or that you like
Well, it's not just,
in the process of avoiding all of the things that you don't want.
but it's not just that. It's the question is, would you even recognize it? Like, would you even see it if you come across it, right? That's what I was just thinking, because that's what I mean with like kind of have your radar, like you need to be able to receive something, right?
Yeah,
and if you're not really focused on or like open on some level to seeing those things, like maybe whatever thing that you do want is staring you in the face, and you like,
and you can't see it.
You can't see it,
Yeah.
right?
Super important point that you just made is we have a part in the brain called the reticular activating system, and it's essentially what filters the things that we see. Again, this is something I've spoken about in previous episodes, which is there are an infinite number of things that we can pay attention to, but we only have so much processing power. And so we're very, very selective about what we notice, what we pay attention to. And you'll know this, for example, if you're watching a movie, you get drawn into the movie and you're not aware of everything else that's going on in the room unless something happens. Maybe there's a loud bang and all of a sudden your attention is taken away to whatever made that bang. But up until that point, you're completely engrossed in the movie. But there are an infinite number of other things that are happening around you. And when it comes to like recognizing what you're saying, recognizing what you actually like, what you want, well, if your filter is constantly filtering only for the things that you don't like, if there's something that bothers you and you're constantly focusing on what bothers you, that's the only thing that you're noticing in your life is the things that bother you. And then you don't have the bandwidth. Literally, you don't have the bandwidth to see the things that you do like and that you do want. And so, like you were saying, it could be staring you in the face and you wouldn't see it. And by asking yourself those questions, like what would I like? What would make me happy? That's when you're starting to switch your perception. You're starting to train your reticular activating system to spot things that would align with what you might like, that what might fulfill you. And it's just so important. I really, this is like the number one thing that will help somebody to feel more on purpose and to start moving towards the life that they do want. Is just you can start as simple as asking yourself, what would make my life enjoyable?
Well, maybe a little bit of practical advice from my side, as I struggle with just that kind of general idea. Like, you don't necessarily have to do it all by yourself, right? Like, sometimes it's just really helpful to get ideas, right? To literally brainstorm with somebody that knows you really well. And you can literally ask them like about, what would you say? What am I really good at? What are my passions? Because sometimes we get so kind of wrapped up that we don't see those things either, right? And it's really hard to, to pinpoint, what am I actually passionate about? Or what is it that I enjoy? And then somebody else might find that super easy and they go, what are you talking about? Like you always light up when you talk about this part of your job, or you were just telling me about this story like the other day. And sometimes you're like, oh, right. And then doesn't mean that you have to do that, but it just gives you that little bit of inspiration to go off of, like, right? Yeah. So you don't just have to start in the void with nothing, but you can actually get like a little brainstorming session and just get some ideas and throw them around in your head.
Yeah. And that's that, when we talk about the reticular activating system acting as a filter for your perception, if you've got a really strong filter on there, well, somebody else doesn't have that filter. So they can look at you and they can have a conversation with you and get an idea of what might work for you. And then they can see opportunities because they don't have the filter blinding them from things that you can't see. So yeah, it is really useful. It's really powerful. I mean, that's why I have the community that I have to help people just to start finding that direction, to start thinking about things a little differently. It's why I offer a free call as well for anybody who's interested in understanding and getting those first steps kind of helping to see through that filter a little bit differently. Because it is, you know, we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes we can't see through the filter that we have. And if we have a little bit of help, we have somebody just to ask us the questions that we haven't thought to ask ourselves. That's when we start to get those breakthroughs that really just completely change the trajectory of where we're headed. I mean, you know, when I think about like where I was going, what is that, like 18 months ago to where I am now, it's just a completely different trajectory, because I listened to, you know, some of the mentors that I had. I was able to start asking myself the questions through learning from these mentors and teachers that then changed the filter through which I perceive my life. And that change in filter and that change in perception has led me to, from, you know, working in London in a very physical job in my business there, to now traveling around the world as a digital nomad and working online and helping others people achieve those same sort of transformations that I achieved. So yeah, it can be really, really valuable. And so if you're listening, I've got a free community. If you want to have access to that, there's a link in the description below. Please, by all means, come and join. And I also offer a free consultation call if you're wanting to get a little bit more insight, because we all live in really complicated situations, and sometimes we just need somebody to pay attention to us and to listen to our situation and our specific circumstances and problems. And that's what that call is there for. So I can hear about what it is that you're going through, and then we can look at what would be a solution that would work, that you could really benefit from. And so the link to that is also in the description below if you want to check that out. Before we wrap up, Julia, any other final pieces of insights that you'd like to give?
I shared my wisdom.
You shared your wisdom? Excellent. Well, I'm going to just turn the camera around because it's a beautiful, beautiful sunset that we're actually driving into. We've got snow around us. This obviously is a bit for the people checking out the video, but we've got the sun streaming through the windscreen at the moment. We've got snow all around us, and it's beautiful. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, then please follow along, rate the show if you like, and send it to somebody that you think might benefit from the show. I think that, you know, we're coming up to the end of the year now, and everybody's starting to think about the year that they've had and the next year that they would like to create. And maybe you know somebody who just needs a little bit of guidance, or maybe not guidance, but a second opinion, or maybe a prompt to ask some better questions. And maybe this episode is the thing to do that. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.